Hi, this is Kenny Leach with the National Football Foundation College Hall of Fame, St. Louis Tom Lombardo chapter. And as you know, we're in the midst of COVID right now, and things that were normal every month just aren't happening. So Bob Button, our executive director here in St. Louis, called me up with a great idea, and he thought it'd be a good idea to have interviews with some of our past award recipients and find out some of their stories that happened after their awards were presented to them and what happened to them later in life. And we found some really interesting stories. Tonight, we want to kick one off with our very own Jake Parent. And I think you'll find this interview pretty fascinating. He's a remarkable guy and the epitome of the type of person that the NFF looks for. Academic minded, athletic, of course, and he gives his all to the community. So please join me for this interview with Jake Parent. Thank you. Why don't you tell me a little bit about like your high school days, your coach, and maybe what was leading up to him nominating you and us selecting you?
Yeah, I was very fortunate growing up. I played football since I was 7, and all through Little League, I had great coaches. And then I got to high school, and I got to have one of the best coaches in all of St. Louis. He's in the St. Louis Hall of Fame, and Steve Stahl. And I didn't know it. I took it all for granted, and I don't, as most kids don't appreciate it until much later. But his influence was essential in me growing up as a kid without a dad. He was the role model. He was the example that I didn't know I needed to follow, but later on in life, I realized that's the guy. That's the guy I need to be like. Had a cool head on his shoulders. Was always in control. Demanded excellence. And did things the right way, and that's what I learned from him. So I was, like I said, fortunate enough to play for him, and our offense and defense were good for me as a player, and I fit right into their system. And by the time it was all said and done, I had a pretty decent career at West, and along the way, I've always stressed academics and doing well, and I was fortunate enough to do pretty well with that as well. And then that's what the National Football Foundation is all about, right? Is recognizing the kids who are doing well in both spheres. And I did a lot of service work, and so I think my profile fit directly into what the National Football Foundation was trying to do. I was in the first class. So that was, they were starting out, and they were trying to find good people to fit in there. And I think my coach being plugged into that situation just said, this is the right guy for an example for that.
And you touched on three things that we do use in the NFF a lot. And it kind of reminds me of the Naval Academy days where they kind of judge you morally, mentally, and physically, and they kind of demand something from each one of those, not just from one. So you can't be an athlete and not give back. You can't be an athlete and not do well in a classroom. And you touched on all those parts, gosh, especially character. Jake, everybody I talked to about you just mentions about how much character you have, and you're just really highly thought of. So that's a tribute to you, buddy.
Thank you.
So let's talk. So your coach, did he tell you that he was going to nominate you, or did you just find out later, or what?
No, didn't know. Didn't have a clue what this organization was about. And to be really honest with you, I was just super excited to get the $1,000, or maybe it might even been $500 back then. I can't remember. Because I went to WashU, and it was an expensive school, and every penny counted. I didn't appreciate what the National Football Foundation was really about at that moment. It was a neat ceremony. They did a great job. And I remember it. I remember what I wore. I remember the people that were there. I remember, I actually have a friend that ended up rooming with at Wash U and is still good friends with today, that was in that ceremony as well.
Oh, wow.
And so we are so it's a very very memorable, but I didn't appreciate it at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's hard to because it's, for one thing, you're in high school.
Yeah,
You're not even sure what you're going to major in yet. But I think it still helps to steer you. Don't you agree?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. um, when you hear what they do and you sit in that banquet and you hear what they're trying to accomplish and what they're doing, and then you hear the speakers all talk about it and then reinforcing everything that they're trying to do, and the different people they awarded, and you're like, wow, those are, again, great examples. Set the bar really high, and you said to yourself, those are some of the things that I can aspire to.
So tell me, when you went from high school to college, how was it different in football? And then you met Larry. It was Larry, right? Was he there
Yes.
then? Yeah.
Yeah, Coach Kim Baum was there. You know, I mean, besides the obvious differences between high school and college, the game of football was different because I only got to start on one side of the ball. And what that makes you do is kind of appreciate the time that you actually have on the field, because you're not on there every play. And all it does is make you raise your level each play while you're out there, and putting higher effort into each play. um, but the team aspect, both my coaches, Coach Kimbaum and Coach Stahl, had great programs, great teams, and approached things their own way. But I was fortunate enough to work with a couple, play for a couple of Hall of Fame coaches, and my experience is exceptionally lucky.
Well, I think that you'd probably be joining him in that aspect one day too, Jake. That'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it?
It would be very cool, but you ask them and ask me, that's not the point of doing it. But it's an end result of a lot of work and a lot of caring and a lot of time.
So when did you learn like the real X's and O's? Because I remember in high school, you know the gist of where you're supposed to go and how you're supposed to do things, the purpose, but X's and O's and eye shades and blocks on the defense and all that stuff gets pretty complicated. When did you really get into that?
So, when I was 7 years old, you're, you're like, what is he talking about? When I was 7 years old, I got my first playbook.
Oh, wow.
And I actually remember this thing, because the time it takes to create a playbook in 1982 compared to today, you can pop some things out and write plays. They had to go, they had the little ruler with the circles, and he had the circles and the X's, and he drew everything out. And of course, there wasn't a lot of plays. But 2 years later, I actually left and went to Virginia to play football, or to go to school and played football. And I taught my coach the plays that we ran out of that system. And I remember loving that since day one. I didn't really talk X's and O's with my high school coaches, but in college, we did a lot. And, that was just part of the maturity and growing up, and, seeing what they meant to do on a game plan and everything. So it evolved over time. And then you get out of college, and I actually worked with another Hall of Fame coach out at Melville, in Gary Heide.
Yeah.
And Mike Mooney was also a award winner from National Football Foundation as one of the assistant coaches of his career. And Mike Mooney and I, my first 2 years at Melville, his classroom was next to mine. And I spent 2 years talking to X's and O's and philosophy, and soaking up everything that I could. And I could have stayed another 20 years and not learned everything I could have from those guys. But that was probably that was probably it, because it was more, I was a coach and not a player anymore, and I wanted to learn everything I could from those guys. my career took a crazy turn after 2 years of being at Melville, and I got to, be a head coach, which is great, and it was fun, and it was rewarding, and it was awesome. But I was in over my head, especially with the X's and O's. I wasn't ready, and I could have benefited from staying there longer with them because they really taught me a lot.
Sometimes you leave your present shores though, and you learn some things from that itself.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Take us through life after college then.
Like I said, I was at Melville and got to work with some coaches. I was a JV coach, assistant coach first year, and then I was the JV head coach the second year. And then a job opened up at St. Mary's, and to be very honest, they were in a tough spot because they let go of their coach, and I was in a crazy spot because I was 24 and thought I knew everything, and didn't sign my contract at Melville, and then I took an interview, and they offered me the job on the spot, and I took the job I think the next day, and boom, I'm a 24-year-old head coach in high school, and I hired two people. Neither of them had high school coaching experience. Neither of them had coaching experience, period. And so we went into our first game as zero high school coaching experience whatsoever. And of course we lost. So it was into the frying pan, and we just did it, and we learned on the run. I asked some people what to do, but I also we just tried as hard as we could and worked as hard as we could to make it happen. Those were not good. They were great 14 years at St. Mary's. The kids were awesome. The experience was awesome. We had some good teams. We had some below average teams, but overall we were pretty good and competitive most of the way through. And we did some things at St. Mary's that they've never done before. Went to the semifinals in my last year, and they had never won a playoff game actually before I got there. So it was some really cool things that we did at St. Mary's, and the kids that I worked with and the coaches that I worked with, I mean, they're still my friends. I mean, we still group chat. We meet for lunch all the time, except for COVID. And we see each other all the time. And those coaching relationships are awesome. I love going to my ex-players' weddings. I love, in fact, I just went to one of my ball girls' weddings this summer.
Wow.
Yeah, her brothers played for me, and she was my ball girl. I think her 6th, 7th, and 8th grade year, and yeah, she invited me to her wedding, and that's cool, right? That's awesome. So that was that experience. I left on my own accord to go to Priory, and you get a little older and things change a little bit. And to be honest with you, I had kids that were nearing high school age and really trying to figure out what best fit them as a place to go to high school. And I looked all around St. Louis, and I thought Priory for me and for the kids were the best fit. And so I ended up taking an assistant coaching job. At that moment, I kind of realized that it wasn't about being the guy in charge. It was just being in a great place with really good people. And I was fortunate enough to work with Marty Combs there, and he was a really, really good head coach, and I could have seen my kids playing for him as a head coach. But unfortunately, as things are in the world, we had a rough stretch there of a couple seasons where we went 1-19, and they let him go, and then they hired me, and I took over, and then for the last 3 years, I've been the head coach there at Priory, and it's been great. One of my probably the best achievement or experience of the whole thing was that I got to coach my son through that, um, and he actually was a National Football Foundation Award winner last year. And unfortunately, we didn't get to do the banquet because I think he's been to a few banquets. I've dragged him along when he was younger, but it would have been really cool to see him up there in his tux and go through the whole thing with him. Um, but coaching him and then watching him succeed and really verify that decision to go to Priory made it awesome.
And you still got 3 more you can get to the banquets to later.
Right. That's right. I have a sophomore and an 8th grader who are already playing for Priory. So yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Well, tell me, I know that you've taught the kids a lot, and everybody knows that, and no better person to do so. What have you learned from the kids that have kind of taught you some things in the past, if you sit and think about it a little bit?
So now this is my 24th year coaching. I played for 15 years before that, if you count grade school, high school, and college. So that's been a couple years, being involved in football. And, I hear the older, even myself, but coaches in general say, man, the kids have changed. Kids have changed. They're not this anymore. They're not as tough anymore. They're not, they play too many video games and all that good stuff. And by the way, they do play too many video games. That's true, right? There are more things pulling them away from football and organized activities. There's so many things for them to do. And all of that is true. But kids, I think, are fundamentally the same, and they fundamentally want the same thing that I did, and even those older coaches when they played. And some of those fundamental things that they wanted was they wanted to know they could fit in somewhere, right? They joined a team to be a part of a team and to see where they could contribute and where they could be a part of that. And once they find a spot, and once they know that they're accepted, and once they know that they're in, that's all they've ever wanted. Then they're always going to look up to the adult. They're always going to look up to the coach, and they're going to learn a lot from the coach, whether it be positive or negative. But what they want is for the coach to provide them a positive experience. And that means something a little bit different to everybody, but they're dependent on the coach to make it happen for them. And I believe to make that happen, you need to make sure they know you care about them and you care about them as an individual. And I know that my coaches cared about me as an individual. And that made the experience all the more worth it. They want to excel. They want to succeed, and they want you to help them get there. And that's why I do what I do, is because that's what I want to see from the kids, and that's what I want them to experience. That's what I got to experience, and if they can experience that too, then I did my job.
It sometimes comes down to purpose, I think. If you feel like you have a purpose, and they have to feel like they have a purpose, and it kind of all clicks then.
Definitely. And that's what I kind of meant by their role. They want to know that they're needed. They want to know that how they're going to help out, what they're going to do to help the team, what they're going to do to help themselves, help the coach. How are they going to contribute? And what is that, exactly what you're saying? What is that purpose? And therefore you need to find a purpose for everybody. That's part of being a coach, right? It's easy to find a purpose for the all-star, right? The all-conference kid, but finding a purpose for each and every one of them, the scout team player, the kickoff only guy, whatever, that's your job, is to make them feel like that, because then you have a better team. Then you have, and so then you win more. So it helps winning, but then it also helps, the kid and his experience. And then they're going to talk about it, and they're going to be happy when they go home. They're going to be happy at their experience. They're going to remember their high school. They're going to remember it. It all works out when you do it that way.
Even the water girl.
Even the water girl. Right.
So you had developed like a football family. You've got your own family that's grown. And I know you've gone through some challenges, that how has those two families helped you through your challenges that you've faced since then?
Yeah, my first medical challenge was my I had some medical challenges earlier in life. I have something called ITP, and it's a blood disorder where you don't where your body actually attacks the platelets. Platelets are kind of important because they clot your blood when you bleed.
Mm-hmm.
So I had kind of like an anemic type of thing where I could just bleed and continuously bleed. By the way, that's not really good for football in a high contact sport. But somehow, and I'll leave it up to you, I'm sure it was a higher power for sure, but let me not have those episodes during football season for 15 straight years.
Wow.
Until my senior year in college, where I believe it was after game 6, I came out of the game and I was bleeding all over the place. And I went to the hospital and I didn't have any platelets and the ITP had struck. That kept me, I was in the hospital, and that kept me in the hospital for about a week or two. But because I wasn't ready to be done, I asked if I could still play another game or two, and I was refused. And then I went and got my platelets checked out one more time right before week 9, and my platelets were really high. So they let me play one more game. I knew that was going to be my last game, so I tried to enjoy every single moment of that game. And after that game, the next day, my platelets dropped back down, and I didn't get to play the last game of the season. So I think God told me that it was time to be done. And that was his way. And that was awesome. 15 years that I got to do what I wanted to do. And that was all very precious. And just that the way it ended obviously wasn't ideal, but it was also something for me to make sure I cherished the very end of it. And then I coached for a few years. And when I was at St. Mary's in 2001, another medical problem associated with the ITP, but basically I got pneumonia, and the pneumonia went into my bloodstream. That's called getting septic. You can get septic with a lot of things, but I was septic. And I ended up being in a coma for 2 weeks, and it was touch and go whether I'd make it or not. I made it out, and the end result of that is that I lost my feet during that process because the blood flow was not going to my extremities, so I ended up losing my feet. And so I was struggling to live. I was struggling to, after I made it living, I was struggling to, I lost 1/3 of my body weight during that time. I was just struggling to make my muscles move again. I was struggling to walk. And then I was all the time trying to figure out how I could get back to coaching football. And football was my motivation, that and my family, holding my 1-year-old son at the time. And if there wasn't football for me to look forward to and to work toward, I'm not sure if I would have had the motivation. I'm not sure if I would have had the drive to do so. Secondly, all those things you learn in football, and you do in some other team sports, but football I think is geared toward this a lot more in terms of, when you get knocked down, it's not that you're gonna get knocked down, but it's how you get up. And you're, all the physical nature of football, I felt like was the physical nature of me recovering, and all the workouts I did to get better was like the workouts I did in football. Um, the the nature of football, the people surrounding you and supporting you, like the team that you have in football, I had that team around me. I had that support around me, and it was just like football. And I'm not here if it's not for football, and that's an easy thing to say.
I tell you, it's miraculous. And gosh, I saw this Frank Cusimano interview that Kelly sent it to me, and he's such a great guy anyway, and
Yeah.
he did a great job with that. But I was astounded at I couldn't even tell, the way you're walking. So you must have went from a period where you couldn't walk at all to where no one could even tell, and that's
Yeah.
miraculous in itself.
Yeah. If I'm wearing long pants, nobody knows.
Right.
And I've shocked a few people when you wear shorts the next day and they're like, what is going on? But yeah, the rehab was fantastic. My prosthetist is great. My prosthetist I've been working with since day one. I actually coached against his son these last couple of years. His son went to MICDS, and I've coached against him. So we've had some great times together. So, but he's done a great job. And with what it has, I can walk really normal. Actually, yes.
It's a weird journey, isn't it? When you think about it, you just mentioned somebody that you met that you wouldn't have met had you gone through that experience and that challenge. But that connection is kind of giving you another facet of life that sounds like it was an important part of your life too.
Yeah, I read, or they had a golf tournament for me to raise money for me when I got sick.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of people that came to that, that contributed to that were associated with it, was incredible. And it showed how big the community is. And then the reach from those guys, and then my mom calling basically every church in Missouri and saying put them on a prayer chain. And then I had people in Colorado praying for me. And the community of humans are absolutely huge and supportive, and there's just wonderful people. And that was probably the greatest lesson for me coming out of that, was just realizing how good people are, and how connected we are, and how fortunate I am to be around the people that I have been around.
And I know that we're trying to draw all this for an article, but I mean, I really think it could be a recording that people would like to hear, as long as it'd be okay with you. We'll discuss that later. But I'll tell you one of the things that I think is really an eye opener to NFL membership and people. We have people that are members that contribute to give scholarships to people like you, and we have sponsors that give money to give scholarships and have the dinners to people like you, not even knowing where you're going to go from there. But then you hear a story like yours, Jake, and it just is quite gratifying for someone like me and sponsors, I think, to know that wow, they put their money and they invested in the right people. And it's really kind of a neat story when you think about it that way.
Well, I've been a part of the National Football Foundation for quite a few years now, and fortunate enough to go to the banquets and see the people and the kids and the young men who win, and the stories are awesome, right? The stories are awesome, and the kids are awesome, and anybody that helps them out, and finds a way to help out the organization. This is not, we're not doing it for TV, right? There's nothing like that. This is about, and it's rarely, there's usually an article in the newspaper, but it's, it's not front page news. And they're doing it because they want to help good people, and there are good people, and we hear too much negativity out there. And I get to see and be a part of an organization that promotes the positive side of things. And um, I'm also, very fortunate that the National Football Foundation decided to name an award after me. And each year a kid, at least one kid, gets to win that award. And those are kids who have overcome certain struggles, and there's been a variety of them. But to see the kid that has one leg and plays nose guard,
Yeah.
and and has great grades and is super determined to make it and do something positive in life, how can you not be excited to be a part of the National Football Foundation?
Yeah, here. I totally agree. And I tell you, Jake, you are the perfect person, I think, to kick off this thing with, because it's just an inspirational story for one. It goes way back to, like you said, the very beginning, of our chapter. We're coming on 30 years this May. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I'm getting old. That's right. Right.
Well, so, I don't know, but I mean, I would love to, with your permission, maybe we'll talk to Bob and see about putting this in a format where people can even hit the link and listen to it, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay, awesome. Is there, can you tell me, like, just give me a cherished memory that you have in the past, or even, someone's sayings or something you've learned along the way that you like to pass on to somebody else that you think would be a good thing to pass on to somebody?
I'll give you one from Coach Stahl.
Okay.
I asked him for one piece of advice when I got into coaching, and he said, "KISS." And it's keep it simple, stupid. I didn't listen to him all the time, but I should have more. And when I do listen to him, things go better, and that's pretty incredible. That's not just for football. I think it's a good one for life. And then my high school or my college coach and Coach Kimbaum, if you know him, he's all about PMA, which is positive mental attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's not just football, that's everything. And if I keep things simple, I have a positive attitude, life is going right. And if you need to change your life, then work on those two things, and I bet it'll turn around.
You're awesome, Jake. We're really proud to have you as one of the people that did receive one of our rewards. It's kind of like getting a reward back later too. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So